Welcome to Hockey Night in New York, where Islanders hockey always reigns supreme. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, Hockey Night in New York is your home for all things Isles. Now, let's drop the puck and get this party started.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Hockey Night in New York. Welcome to the program, everyone. It is Sunday, November 6, 2022. Coming at you live from Florida Media in Rockville Center. Yes, we are back. Great to be back. Big show coming up for you tonight. Christian Arnold's not here. Chris Botta is not here. But filling in is Mr. Stefen Rosner. Stefen, thanks for joining us. Chris Botta is actually going to be calling in, so a little reversal of the roles here. But welcome aboard, man. Happy
to be here. Happy Christian is not here. Christian, if you're watching.
Yes, indeed. One day he'll be back. We think. We're working on that, but he's doing a good job for AM Sports New York over there, so we'll get him back in. But happy to have Stefen aboard, and also happy to remind you all that we are proud to be sponsored by Blue Line Deli and Bagels, located at 719 West Jericho Turnpike in Huntington, and of course the new location at 217 Carlton Avenue in East Islip, and of course UBS Arena at Belmont. Also proud to be sponsored by Lost Farmer Brewing Company, located at 63A 2nd Street in Mineola. Was actually there this weekend on Saturday, a little Beano tournament. You ever hear of Beano?
Yeah,
it's like this.
I don't know what that is.
So it's basically like finger flicking soccer. You get this little soccer board, and it's really addicting. So they had this whole tournament there. Bunch of people there had a great time. Actually went over there with Donnie Bagels himself from Blue Line Deli and Bagels. They did it World Cup style, so they broke the teams out into like four teams each. It was about 5 groups, and we all had like our different teams. We were Poland. We were matched up with Japan, Brazil. We won our group. We got into the playoffs, but then we got bounced out in the first round of the playoffs.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, we gave it a shot, but a lot of fun things going on at Lost Farmer Brewing Company. It's an awesome spot, and they're always updating the brews and the taps and stuff like that. So if you haven't been there yet, definitely check it out. A lot of fun stuff. They have a new location open up in Malvern soon. They're doing great stuff over there, and of course, don't forget about that Stable Shaker celebrating the brand new home in Belmont. So, with the sponsorship stuff out of the way, Stefen, Midwest road trip, 2-1. First road trip of the season. They go 2-1. Chicago, St. Louis, Detroit starts out great. Well, actually, does it start out great? Because they've had some slow first periods here. Obviously, they got the result, but you made a mention of it on NYI Hockey Now. So why don't you talk a little bit about the fact that they're off to some slow starts here?
Yeah, so they're definitely benefiting from strong play from goaltenders, Sorokin and Varlamov as well. And you look at it as they're not coming out of the gate fast. And that's one thing against slower teams, but they're facing fast teams. I mean, you saw Detroit yesterday. That's a fast, young team that came out flying, and the Islanders didn't really have an answer. They escaped that first period, not trailing, but once Detroit got the first goal on the 5-on-3, that was pretty much it. The Islanders didn't generate much. I think they had 23 shots on goal, but they had 23 attempts blocked or missed. So, again, it was not a good game for them. Lambert was not happy with their speed. He even said after the game, it's unacceptable how slow they were. Essentially is what he said. And look at it as, well, does this team have enough to be fast? We've seen it this year. They can play a fast game.
Yeah.
Just a little too slow getting to that game. But again, they have a good record because of the play of their goaltender, especially Sorokin early in games.
Right. And look, the sample size is still small, but it's getting bigger. And we're getting a better idea of what this team is bringing to the table. And you look back to where that winning streak started off and playing against tough teams in Carolina, New York, and of course, Colorado. And they hung with those teams. It wasn't like they played survival with those guys and they were lucky to get the wins. They were dictating play in moments of those games. Obviously, they weren't all perfect, but I think it's very encouraging that they're hanging with these teams that have speed. Even though they struggle with teams like New Jersey and now Detroit, it looks like overall they're going to be all right. Now, look, you're not going to have a perfect game every night. You're not going to have a perfect out. There's 82 games in the season. You're not going to win them all as much as we all want them to, right? But we're starting to see more of what this team can bring under Lane Lambert. They go on this 3-game road trip. They come out 2-1. I think everybody's happy with that. Now, look, is that 3 games they could have won? Yeah, sure. You look at how much Chicago has been struggling over the last couple of seasons. St. Louis has had an awful start to the year. Well, they were on a 5-game losing streak, I think, heading into that game.
They had a closed-door meeting, and the general manager called out how much their effort. He called out their effort. They had a closed-door meeting. You knew they were going to come out of the gates flying, but then the Islanders are getting to their game. So the good thing is that they're winning these games. Last year, all these games they trail early, they probably lose. So good teams find a way to win these games, and that's the biggest difference, I think, from last year is that they're not playing 100% to their best of their ability early, but they're still coming back. Even against Colorado, they go down 3-0 last year. That game is over.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you there. And look, maybe the fact that they have this great goaltending tandem, and especially with the way Sorokin's been playing, like if this is what they need to find their footing in this Lane Lambert system, like that's great. That's fine. Sorokin can bail them out, and maybe until they kind of find their stride, and maybe they hit midseason and they're not so slow out of the gate in the first period. So maybe it's great benefit to have a guy like Sorokin who can make that big save or two in the first period. And look, this isn't the way you want to see every game going. But if that's what it takes to get them to more of a mid-season form, then look, you use that benefit to your advantage. So they did against Chicago, so we can talk a little bit more about that game. That's a 3-1 win. You get goals from Anders Lee, Brock Nelson, Zach Parise with an empty net goal. And, they started out a little bit slow. Casey Cizikas takes that 5-minute major, and he gets the match penalty, 2-3 minutes into the game?
Yeah, it was his first shift. He was
right.
So they're down a center early. That Matt Martin missed that game because his wife gave birth. Seany.
Right,
so
that's
they
right.
had Johnson on that line.
Mm-hmm.
So within first couple of minutes there, your fourth line, your only regular is Clutterbuck. Yeah,
right.
The forwards, the centermen are double shifting. I spoke to Clutterbuck afterwards, and he said they played great. I mean, you look at Pajot, he's also on the penalty kill,
right?
Power play, Parise. I mean, all these guys that were just shifts and shifts. And Lambert, the good thing about Lambert, which what we've seen him do, is late in games, he is mixing up his lines. He's putting out the best players that he thinks could lock it down. We saw the other day Clutterbuck skating with Barzal. Against St. Louis, actually, Wallstrom was out there in the final couple of minutes, and he said afterwards he earned that chance. So you're seeing Lambert in big moments when he wants to lock it down, putting out the players he thinks give him the best chance. He's not specifically running lines.
So now that you mention that, and through these, 11, 12 games, whatever it's been now, I mean, do you see Lambert looking comfortable in that top seat now behind the bench as the head coach?
I think so, and I think because he's getting results. I think early on, I know when we left the Tampa game, he walked out of the media availability, and he was not happy.
Okay.
And I think, you're a new head coach. You want to have success. And when you don't, you're under the microscope. Again, I don't think he pays attention to the media at all, but it's got to be frustrating. And you want your team playing a certain way, and they're not. And the fact that they're now playing to more of the level that he wants, especially effort level, which, again, back to that Jersey game, was inexcusable. And he even said, and the players all said it was pathetic. But since that Florida series, even though they lost to Tampa and Florida, they played much better.
Absolutely.
Not saying they deserve to win. Maybe they want to beat Tampa. I think they outplayed Tampa, just a couple of bad breaks.
Sure.
But the effort level is there. The offense is here. The defense, you look at the offense, I think is averaging like 3.3 goals per game right now. Top 10, maybe top 5, I think maybe 7 actually.
Yeah, before they were shut out, I mean, it had to be like 3.7 or something like that.
But then the defense was struggling. But now the defense is a top 5 defense again.
Right.
And then you're getting great goaltending. Again, that's a luxury. You look at the Rangers last year. Shesterkin was unreal. They relied on him, got to the playoffs, and then you just need more. You can't rely on your goalie every second to win. And I think you're looking at this year, like Shesterkin's not a god anymore. But early in the season, like you said, getting this system right, having Sorokin and even Varlamov back there to say, okay, when they make a mistake or if somebody pinches, like Romanov often early on, he'd jump up on the play when Dobson was already up. They get caught.
And he's looking more comfortable too.
Of course.
Yeah.
But Sorokin's there to make that big save. You trust him to make that big save. And I think that also plays into why, I asked Lambert, what made you think that this team could play more aggressive? You've been behind the bench since 2018 as an assistant. And he said he knew this group, he knew they could do it. And I think that he knew that he could try this early is because he trusts Sorokin and he trusts Varlamov too. That if we make the mistake, because if you don't have a competent goalie in net and you don't trust him,
the wheels are going to fall off.
But you're not going to even try it, I don't think. Because if you do that, you're not trusting your goaltending. We see other teams around the league where if they play an aggressive system, right away during the season, you're going to see that's not going to work and then you got to change everything. So I think Sorokin's play, and even Varlamov's, but more so Sorokin's because he's going to be the starter. Lambert trusted that, okay, we could try this out early because we know that we have one of the best goalies in the league behind us. When we do make mistakes, more often than not, he's going to bail us out. And so far, he has.
Yeah, no, it's definitely paid dividends, so I think that's a pretty good strategy. And real quick, before we break for Chris Botta, let's just talk about that Zeker penalty.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, first shift, he gets the 5 in a match, which I thought was a little much, and at least what came out of it afterwards, he gets the fine, no further suspension, which I think was the right call. But look, we've been watching this guy for a long time. He's not the type of player that's going to run a goalie intentionally. So maybe it was just a situation where it was just a quick play, couldn't get out of the way. And Stalock was also pretty far out of his crease there. So, I mean, what was your assessment of the call and what happened there?
So I try to look at it two ways. I'm a goalie, so I try to take it from that point of view. So I'm watching the play initially. Zizekas takes it to the outside on the backhand. He's trying to follow up that rebound. That's what he's supposed to do. He's looking at the puck. Stalock didn't help himself with the way he slid. He actually slid against the shot. So the shot went one way. He slid to the left. The shot went to the right, which means he didn't track it. Zizekas didn't have anywhere to go. you have to try to get out of the way, which is what I think the refs looked at. He didn't try. It was a hit to the head.
Right.
Stalock also was hurt. I know that shouldn't play a part, but it did.
Right.
It
always does.
Yeah,
they always make their calls based on how messed up the dude is afterwards.
Later in the first period when Athanasio runs Sorokin.
Right.
If Sorokin stays down and is hurt, Athanasio is getting the boot. I personally believe that's what would happen because that was more deliberate, intentional, falling on top of him. But Sorokin popped back up.
Right.
Which is why I think you just saw a 2-minute penalty there. But then you look at it as, from the goalie's point of view, he also has to have the ability to make the save. He didn't read it correctly, but I think Stalock, looking back, he didn't read that right, which put himself in a vulnerable spot. And talking to Cizikas the next day, I asked him, like, what did you see? And he goes, listen, I was cutting to the outside. I was trying to get the shot. I looked up. He was there. Nowhere for me to go. I'm not someone that's going to intentionally do it. I thought he would get suspended just because he's a second offense. Last year he was suspended against after he hit Brendan Smith from behind.
Okay.
On the Hurricanes.
Right.
He got 1 game for that. So I thought they would just look at it and say, all right, we know this wasn't intentional. Because watching the replay, you know it's not intentional.
Yeah.
But he's a second offender. We have to suspend him. Usually when you get a match penalty, but I think also, not that this plays a part, it was so early in the game. Technically, his 1 game suspension was that game. He didn't play the rest of the game.
That's actually a good call. That's true.
I don't know if that's what they...
18 minutes of a game.
Yeah, I don't know if that's how they look at it, but I think that played a part. And again, you look at, was it deliberate? Unfortunate hit to the head, but again, you have to look at the situation. Stalock's in the wrong spot. Cizikas is not a guy that's ever done this before running goalies. He's a hugger. He hugs every goalie after every game.
Yes.
And he waited afterwards to make sure he was okay.
Yeah,
he wasn't,
that's true.
So I think that Islanders were very fortunate that didn't get in a game, but Cizikas is not a guy that's going to do that intentional.
I agree with you, and we're going to pick that up. Folks, I want to thank you so much for tuning in to Hockey Night in New York here live at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY, and, of course, later on at your favorite podcast provider. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Mr. Chris Botta, new host of Hockey Night in New York, will be joining us. We'll be right back.
I don't want to hear it. It's over. I can't believe they fell short again.
Yeah, but they played so well. They made it to the semifinals 2 years in a row.
The semifinals aren't the cup. God damn it, I hate those Lightning.
They'll get another shot at it next year.
I don't even want to talk about it anymore, all right? They lost, okay? Let me just sit here and enjoy the one thing that makes me a little bit happy. This fresh, delicious, tasty, meaty, turkey-filled Blue Line Combo. I eat 3 every day to help keep me strong.
Hey, Donnie, can I have one of those?
Coming right up. Talk about a blast from the Blue Line.
Blue Line Deli and Bagels. Our goal is to make you a hero.
Miss the days of mixtapes and arcades? Love the taste of a bold IPA or maybe an ice-cold lager? There's a place where all of those magical things come together. Lost Farmer Brewing Company. At 63A East 2nd Street in the heart of Mineola, Lost Farmer combines a love of the 80s and a passion for quality beer to create brews that can only be described as gnarly, radical, and totally tubular. The retro vibe of the tasting bar will amp up your nostalgia while the blend of both local and exotic ingredients amp up your taste buds. Beer not your thing? Crack open a can of cider or sip a Chardonnay on the extended patio. Order up from the snack menu. You can even bring your own. If you're more of a homebody, pick up a growler to go or order online at lostfarmerbrewing.com. And for all of Long Island's hockey fans, Lost Farmer created the delicious Stable Shaker American Lager to celebrate the newly built UBS Arena at Belmont Park. Whether you're at the stable for a hockey game, concert, or a comedy show, you can find Stable Shaker by can and draft around the arena. So raise a cup to the next cup with Lost Farmer Brewery, the future of Long Island craft beer.
Ready to talk more Isles? The train rolls on right here on Hockey Night in New York.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching and or listening to Hockey Night in New York. I want to welcome our pal, our friend on the line right now, Mr. Christopher Botta. Chris, thanks for hopping on the other side. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing great, Sean. How are you?
Doing great. Sitting here with Stefen Rosner, taking your place. A little reversal of roles here, but Chris, the Isles went on a little Midwestern swing here, a little 2-1 road trip. Faltered a little bit yesterday against a speedy young Detroit Red Wings. What did you see out of this road trip for the Isles?
I don't think we learned too much. I think I think if you look at the 3 games as in total, I would say they kind of held serve, right? We thought there was a possibility they could run the table. We've learned a little more. I thought they were good. They did what they had to do. They beat a Chicago team that they should beat, especially Chicago had a couple guys out of the lineup. And then they beat a St. Louis team that is everybody's beating right now. I don't know what's going on there,
right.
but hey, we've been there, so good luck to them trying to figure it out. It's not easy. And then they went to Detroit and lost. So I don't, we've talked about this a lot, that this is a narrative of a season where we're going to see what we could learn about this team. This is a team that should contend for a playoff spot. Are they going to be worse than that? Or are they going to be much better than that? I think we're 12 or so games in. We're not exactly sure. But listen, it sure beats where we were looking a couple weeks ago after the Jersey and the 3 losses in a row. So overall, not so bad considering new coaching staff and this idea of running it back. So all in all, not bad. I don't know what you guys talked about in the first 12 minutes of the show or what your take was, but I unfortunately know, as you know, I was just getting back from a trip. But
Yes.
Not too much. I didn't take too much from the week. It's good, right? And anybody who's been a fan of this team for a long time could tell you that it's okay to just be okay for a little bit and be 7-5. So we'll take it for now.
Yeah, without a doubt. And look, they're in a much better place than they were 2 weeks ago, right? Now we're talking about coming off a 5-game winning streak. They stumble a little bit against Detroit yesterday. And I guess let me ask you about a decision they made going into that. Everybody's singing Ilya Sorokin's praises for good reason. He's been a hero here for a couple of weeks now. What do you think of the decision for them to go with Varley? Not to say that he's the reason why they lost yesterday, but do you have an opinion on Lane Lambert going to Varley yesterday as opposed to riding the hot hand in Ilya Sorokin?
Well, I have to say it's amazing that you asked this question, because I'll let the listeners know that Sean and I, we have no relationship whatsoever. We don't talk before shows. We just bring it to
we really
the show.
Don't like each other, honestly.
And yeah, I mean, kind of like the
truly
Islanders
professional
week.
relationship.
Yeah, it was like it's okay. And but when I do guest on your show, I don't know about when I go. When I guest on your show, I try to bring something to talk about. And the thing that I have on a pad, because I write things down on legal pads sometimes, was this issue of Sorokin. So
Love it.
Never mind Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
What I would say, gentlemen and Sean, is that the Islanders play 15 back-to-backs by my count. And other than that, and if you want to pick, say, 5 more games, I feel that Ilya Sorokin should start. If they're playing every other game, he's fine. He's young. He's in his prime. He's their number one goalie. And we did talk about this a little bit at the beginning of the season. Yeah. You play your best, generally speaking. I know there's Ross Johnson arguments and things like that. But generally speaking, teams in every sport play their best players. Why would you not play your best? So that's not why they lost Saturday, but in the big picture going forward, unless it's a back-to-back, and I know they have one coming up, there's no reason to do it. This is why you pay these guys. And the answer to the question was, well, what happens if Sorokin gets hurt? Well, then you play Varlamov all the time. Like, right. That's the beauty of having this incredible insurance thing going on, where you cut them around, you're paying them as well good money, but you should go with your best. And in this case, as you guys know, and everybody listening knows, your best is one of the best at his profession. Like, he's one of the 3 best in the world. So, and this is a team that needs it. So, even though we agree that Saturday wasn't the reason, right. Sometimes there is something to be said for just putting your best out there as sending a message. They need to put points in the bank, and they can't let anything go to, well, let's play Varley, we love him, we don't want him to get too rusty. No, it's his job to stay sharp. And then when you get the call, sure. The reason I wasn't here is because I was at the MLS Cup in Los Angeles, where I do some work for, and we had this incredible story with this goalie who never played all season, wound up playing in the final minutes because the main goalie got hurt, and he was a star in the PK, and it was this incredibly moving scene with this kind of backup for life who happened to be from Philadelphia, played for Los Angeles, and beat Philadelphia by making these three incredible saves, two incredible saves in particular, in the PKs, and he was named MVP of the championship game. So this is a case study in what you do as a backup is stay ready. So play Sorokin all the time except for back-to-backs.
So what I will say before I ask you a question, Chris, how are you doing?
How you doing, Stefen? What's going on? Nice to talk to Long Island royalty.
Ah, jeez, don't put me there yet. But I want to say about Varlamov starting is that the last time he started was a week ago against Colorado, and I think Lambert's looking at it as he's going to play the back-to-back. He's going to play against the Rangers. He dominates them at MSG. I don't think he wanted him to have, again, I'm not saying it's the right call. I don't think he wanted to have almost a week and a half off between games. So I think that's the only reason why he went to Varlamov, but the hockey gods wanted Sorokin in because Varlamov got removed for concussion protocol. But my question to you is about the power play. They went 2 for 9 this week. You know, what are you seeing from watching that? The reason why maybe they're not having as much success?
You know, as Sean knows all too well, and I'll even, I say this a lot, I'm not your analysis guy, but they are short a few of the horses in terms of they're not the most gifted offensive team, and I think the power play is where that really shines and where it's important. And then it's going to run hot and cold. I know it continues to be cold, and it's a problem right now for this team. I saw Kevin Kerr said if they could just get the power play going, the team could join the elite of the league. To my friend Kevin, I would say I don't know if he meant to sound that positive, because the power play can catch on and then other things slow down. That's kind of the nature of this long season. So you need to just be competent on the power play. They have gotten their chances. I think that's going to be a real concern later on as the season goes on, and maybe closer to the deadline they add some of those pieces for hopefully the playoffs. But right now, it just feels a little static. Another thing that people who've heard me on your show or other things I've done will say before, I hate the fact that an assistant coach has to wear this. In this case, I'm assuming that everybody feels, well, Doug Hoot is a defenseman, so he works the defense. John McClain played power play. I'll defend John McClain. I'll go back to I lived with this with Kip Miller 20 years ago when Peter Laviolette was coach. And the one thing that we weren't good at, I should say, but I don't play, but I was with the team back then. The one thing that the team wasn't good at in that year was the power play, and it sits with Kip. It's not about an assistant coach and systems. The players got to play. So I know I'm not really answering your question as to say it's very static, but these things tend to run in cycles during the course of the season, and at some point it will get a little better, and possibly something else drops off.
Yeah, for sure, Chris. There always seems to need to be a scapegoat. I remember when Scott Gomez's name used to come up all the time when the power play used to struggle a couple of years back, But, you talk about the fact that maybe it's not such a huge deal now, and I think you have a decent point there just because of how well they're playing 5-on-5, and especially on the PK. So maybe it gives them a little time to work on the power play, right?
Yeah, and that's all these coaches talk about how they need their practice. I think if you're the coaches, all you could do is just get out there, keep on working at it. These are your players. These are your players probably until February, at least. Patrick Kane is not showing up tomorrow, for example. I don't know if he's showing up in February, but in all likelihood, he's not showing up tomorrow. This seems to be the group that they're going with. So honestly, it's a storyline, and I get it. And it is a concern, but there also kind of comes a point where you are what you are in terms of your gifts. And I think this is a team that's never going to have a great power play. You just want to get it so that they can get the occasional timely one, right? And I suspect that they will.
And I think Lambert's trying to mix things up. I know when Salo came out of the lineup, Ryan Pulak got put back on the power play, and then power play 2, he's at the point. And we've seen him do a little stutter step move like Salo did where he creates that shooting lane. But again, it's about consistency and hitting the net. I think yesterday on the power play, he snapped a stick on a one-timer. They got the look they wanted. So I think Lambert's trying, but like you said, I agree. You need that when you have that game changer, elite scorer, superstar. That's where he pays off 5-on-5, but on the power play, when he gets a chance to let one rip, those guys usually score more often than not. So I think I agree with you. Like this power play might be able to be good enough to help them, but they're not going to be an elite power play team unless they have an elite scorer, and that's what they're missing.
Yeah, and Wallstrom is the one player on the team who can, score from somewhere, beyond the average. So I hope it's something where they're continuing to work with him and get him in that spot so that he's featured on the power play even more eventually. I don't really know what happened with Ryan Clark there. It was kind of like an early season mystery where somebody actually called in our show, Stefen, with that question, and Sean and I were a little speechless. The best I could come up with was that perhaps he had maybe a little shoulder issue or something that was maybe affecting his shot. Because he should be there. I'm not saying he's the greatest in the world, but if he's not there, like something's wrong. So listen, there's still the good news for the Lambert era here is that they're still figuring things out, but they're above water. They're above NHL 500. And, they're able to work on things. So we're past the point of, mercifully, of that, great concern after the Jersey loss and what followed after it. And they're buying a little more time. Where they're missing is, and I've heard this talked about, other teams who've gotten off to great starts like Boston. Howie Rose had mentioned it on a thing that I had done last year. When the Islanders started 11-1, 1-1 back, we had 5 categories in the 01-02 season. Peter Laviolette's first year, they literally lived off of that start. I believe they played 500. I believe they played 500 the rest of the way. And one of the assistant coaches back then was a French Canadian, a former great player, Jacques Leperrier, and he openly just talked about points in the bank, how he does the accent that I mean. But there is something to be said for that. So, and that kind of goes back to my Sorokin thing too. Is like you just don't want to leave anything to chance. I get it. You're not gonna win a Stanley Cup in October or November. You're not gonna. Right. But there is, you just don't want to let points go by the wayside. I don't think I'd have to think about it. They've kind of lost the games they deserve to lose. I don't think there's been anything where you'd say that was really bad or that coaching decision or lineup decision was bad. I agree. But the Sorokin thing is worth watching. This is you'd love to. We think of Lundqvist and Shesterkin. We think of teams who've had these elite goalies. The Islanders now have one. We could debate how long it's been, since we've had one. I was thinking not so long ago, perhaps a subject for another day, at the risk of hyperbole, that by the end of this year, Ilya Sorokin could be the second best goaltender in Islanders history. You can let me know who's second and third right now, but he's getting there really closely. And my thing is you play them. You don't know how long a career is going to be. I'm not saying you waste this guy. I'm not saying you physically harm him. He's young. He could take it. He's used to playing a lot. He wants to play a lot. So, get him out there. He should be playing 60 to 65 games as long as he's healthy.
Yeah, I agree with you, Chris. And maybe that's a future top 5 for you and us on the program, talking about the starting goalies. But Robin Salo's name came up, and he's a guy who's been in and out of the lineup. It looked like he had the bottom 6 pairing job with Scott Mayfield to start the season. He sputtered out of the gate a little bit. Sebastian Aho takes it away, and now Salo gets sent back to Bridgeport this morning, and with your experience working in the team in the past, and you look at a young guy like that who's trying to make his way, and he's in and out of not only in and out of the lineup, but also getting sent back and forth from the farm team. Can you recall an experience maybe with a player that you worked with, and you don't have to name any names, but just looking at how that might weigh on a player, a guy who might get frustrated or who's looking for his chance? You look at that situation and does it remind you of somebody who maybe, might have gotten a little frustrated or had a rough time with that, just trying to, find his footing in the lineup?
Yeah, that's a good question. In terms of going to the minors, we've seen guys like, Wallstrom not get the ice time or be scratched and things like that. And you wonder, in the end, and it is true, coaches will tell you, GMs will tell you, even other players will tell you that if a guy is a real player, he will battle through that. See this in the minors. They see this in baseball and other sports where it's just like, why is he keeps on being the one being sent down? Listen, we're pretty close to the thing with Robin Salo. What was the thing? It was a movie with Connolly was in, like, she's just not that into you or something along the lines of that. And I know there's this movie out now, the Banshees of Inisherin movie, where the guy just stops talking to the other guy. And it has something to do with the fact he just decides he doesn't like him anymore. So I don't think I'm giving anything too much away there. But the point of all this is that we like Robin Sala, right? The fans like Robin Sala. Mm-hmm. We like what he represents. We like that prospect. We like the things that we've seen with our own eyes too, even though we're not scouts or necessarily experts. But when this keeps on happening, when he keeps on being the odd guy out, also in favor of Sebastian Aho, for example, there just comes a point where, okay, we got to give our people meaning the GM and the coach, the benefit of the doubt. So something's not adding up right there. Last year, I think it was just like, we need him playing. And if that's him playing a lot in Bridgeport, that's fine. Right. Now, it just might be, they just don't, he's not one of their six best. I'm not going to go down the Sorokin road again, but they're doing this because they're playing their six best on D, and right now Salo isn't it.
Right. Well, Chris, thanks so much for the assist tonight. Really appreciate you hopping on with us. Looking forward to getting back in the saddle with you in a future show, and hope you enjoy the rest of your night.
You got it, Sean. Thank you, Stefen. Good luck, everybody.
Thanks a lot, Chris. Take it easy. All right, folks, that was the great Chris Botta, co-host of Hockey Night in New York. Good stuff. So, Stefen, let's pick it up with that. I almost said Stefen Rosner talk. Robin Salo talk. And, you look at this situation, like I noted with Chris, looked like he had the job to start, kind of sputters out of the gate. Now it's Aho's job to take back. And, in fact, Chris and I tackled this question last week, in fact, talking about, whether Salo should be in, whether Aho should hold on to it. And what's your thoughts on that? You're obviously you're covering the games here. What do you make of Aho's game so far, and do you think Salo's going to deserve a chance sooner than later?
Yeah, so with Aho, we know what he is. Last time I was on the show, we talked about it. We know that he's pretty much an extra forward when he's on the ice.
Okay, fair enough.
He's going to make some plays like we saw against Detroit. Spinorama move, cut to the net move.
Sure, yeah.
He makes plays.
Right.
The problem is he's good for one or two mistakes in his own zone.
Yeah.
Where you got to say, okay.
Mental blunders,
and you have to say, well, is that worth it? Now, I think with Salo being reassigned today, I think it's more of a strategic thing than his play. They want
Get him some games in the bridge.
Yeah, I spoke to Lambert after the last game when I was in St. Louis, and I said, is Salo showing you anything during warm-ups, during practice? And he said he's doing the right things. Lambert doesn't give much away, but I think you look at it as the Islanders right now are going to rock 60. They don't go on the road till next Tuesday.
Right.
Bridgeport has a couple of guys banged up. Grant Hutton's one of those guys that's banged up.
Okay.
Bridgeport played today. They lost 1-0 to Providence. Salo played. Thompson after the game. Shout out to my intern, Joshua Linsenberg. He was there. He spoke to Thompson, and Thompson said, I thought he played well. It was a playoff-like atmosphere. He held his own. He's moving the puck. And he thought he played well. And I think because the Islanders don't go on the road till next week, because Bridgeport played today, and Bridgeport has 2 more games Friday and Saturday, this allows Salo to get some big minutes down there. Maybe if it was just for today, he might get called up this week. But get him games where he's going to play. He's been sitting and not doing anything. I think it's important for his development, but what you've seen at the NHL level from Salo, and if you remember last year, there was an opportunity for him to be called up, I think in March, and Witherspoon got called up instead.
Yeah.
And I remember Trotz saying, Witherspoon's been our best defenseman. Salo wasn't down there, and he should have been. So that's a wake-up call for Salo.
Right.
So now the biggest thing is when he comes in the lineup, he's got to be consistent because as much as Aho maybe makes those mistakes, he is consistent with it.
I suppose that's
and
true.
I think they trust more of what he could bring and the experience than the question marks of Salo. Because Salo comes in, he has really, really good games, like we saw earlier, or really, really bad games. Again, as much as Aho makes some mistakes, you know exactly what you're going to get from Aho on a nightly basis. Mayfield knows exactly what he's going to get, and I think that's also important.
That's a good point.
Where I'm not saying Mayfield goes into the game saying, okay, Aho's going to make 4 or 5 mistakes in the game, but I know where Aho struggles. I know when he needs me more. When Salo, you're getting the best of the best one night, the worst of the worst. Very hard for a defenseman to read that, especially when you're not playing with him every day. So I think, like Botta said, you're playing your 6th best demon now, and Aho is part of that. And I think Salo still needs to fine-tune his game. There's things he has to work on. As for his confidence level, every time I see Salo, he's smiling. He's always willing to talk. But there comes a time when you get an opportunity, you got to make the most of it, because we know for a fact Salo should be in there over Aho. And he just hasn't taken the chance and been consistent with it.
Right, and it seems like last year, and correct me if I'm wrong, but he seemed a little frustrated when he was sent down last year.
He made
kind of
some
felt
comments.
like he belonged, right?
He said something about how he didn't want to be in, he didn't like Bridgeport, the area. Which I don't blame him. But
I'd prefer to be playing for the New York Islanders instead of the Bridgeport Islanders too, so it makes sense.
But he was given, like you said, that chance right off the bat. He was the sixth man from the start. No one else got the chance until the end of preseason when Aho got the opportunity.
Right.
So that was a big chance for Salo, and I'm not going to say he blew it because he's still young. This is only his second year in North America.
Right.
I spoke to him about it. He said there's a lot of things he's still learning about the ice and the surface and the speed, even coming into this year. So I think still a learning curve, but he's going to play big minutes in Bridgeport. When he gets that chance again, they're going to give Aho the benefit of the doubt. So unless Salo blows him the way and it's consistent, and also Islanders are winning. They're playing better hockey.
Right.
You're not going to. We haven't seen Salo in because the Islanders have been winning with Aho, and Aho's not the reason they lost yesterday. Aho's not the reason they've lost it all. Really, it's a whole team effort. But yeah, if Salo comes back in, he's got to take it, because if not, they're going to go right back to Aho.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I agree with the notion that it's more just to get him into some games.
Options too. Aho would have to go on waivers. Salo's waiver exempt, and that's how that's a big part of it.
Right. No, for sure. But I do think it's just to get him some more reps. Yeah. If he's not going to play, have him playing down at Bridgeport. And they're doing great down there, by the way. They keep winning games.
Yeah, they lost today. The first loss at home. They were 5-0 to start the season at home. I think they're 7-2-1-0 right now. So
love to see it. I feel like they haven't had a winning season along. I know they made the playoffs last year, which is obviously a big step.
Either they had a really strong end of the year or they had a really slow end of the year, but they got points early, something like that. But they got into the playoffs. But they have so much talent this year. I mean, Dufour has been impressed. Everyone complained about, he can't skate. He's skating on 2-on-1s with Ratu and coming through. He's scoring big goals in overtime. He's scoring in the shootout. Ratu looks great. Isakov, who just won
guys putting up
AHL
points.
of the month, putting up points. Looks like a mini Goudreau down there. And his biggest thing was his size. We saw him in preseason. He gets pushed around.
Right.
But
Small
he looks great. Samuel Bolduc looks great, and he's
putting up a lot of
points
points too, right?
Yeah, I think he has 8 or 9 assists. 5 goals. I think 8 assists or 3 goals. But he was banged up last year. Skarik's taking a step. Schneider's the starter. But this is probably the most talented Bridgeport team they've had in a while. And then it's
been a long time.
You see players like, I'm not going to want to poke fun at Michael Dowd-Cole, but you see players like that where maybe they were taking a spot away from someone who's now playing better. And you also have that veteran leadership too, like Grant Hutton. Speaking to him at training camp and development camp, he was at development camp. That guy's a leader. And I know maybe he doesn't wear a C or an A for Bridgeport, but if you want to point to someone in the locker room about, okay, he's an unsung leader there, Grant Hutton gets my vote the whole time.
All right, so a little Bridgeport report here. Not bad. So, get Salo some games down there if he's not going to play up here. He's going to have plenty of chances to get back in there. And if Aho tends to struggle, or maybe if some of his mishaps, his hiccups do lead to some losses or at least some bad plays for the Islanders, then I'm sure Salo's going to get back in there.
And I think at the deadline, too, it depends where this team is. If they're going to go out, they got to get a score for sure, but they could go get a veteran defenseman as well. If they don't think Salo's ready, and you don't think Aho can handle the playoffs, if they're close, go out and get a veteran defense. You don't have to go get a Chychrun. That's what everybody wants to see. The amount where you would have, the asking price is ridiculous. And again, if your team's winning, the last thing you want to do is bring a guy in and also have to get rid of pieces that are the reason why you're winning. They don't want to do that.
For sure. Well, let's rapid fire through the other 2 games in that road trip and then move on to the special teams. So real quick, Thursday they go into St. Louis, 5-2 win. Blues are all over them in the first period.
All over, yeah.
It almost looks like the Blues figured it out, and of course the Islanders are going to be the victim, right? And the Blues go up ahead in the first period, but then the second period comes, and the Islanders blow the doors off.
4 unanswered goals.
Yeah.
Everything was clicking. Binnington was. We could talk about Binnington for a second. I know Chris Botta said he was watching the MLS Cup. I don't know who dove more, those players or Binnington, because
very nice.
I wrote an article, and people thought maybe it was too fanny, but I wasn't poking fun at Binnington for his play against the Islanders. He had some reckless decisions. It's a bad look for NHL goalies. They do a lot to protect goalies in the NHL.
Right.
And when you see a goalie, not just him, but you see it often where goalies are flying back when they don't get touched. Wallstrom came behind the net to play a puck that Binnington had on a stick, maybe grazed him. Binnington's trying to win an Oscar, doesn't even win an Emmy.
He's a special case. He has a reputation not only for the antics when he's getting bumped, but then he's obviously bumping into guys.
He bumps into Sorokin.
Well, see, I saw that, and first I thought it was Sorokin giving him the business for kind of how he was acting. Then I looked back and I was like, okay, obviously it was Binnington who did the bumping. But I was a little proud of Sorokin for a second.
So I spoke to Sorokin after the game. His English, by the way, he speaks better English than most people. He's quiet, but I asked him and I said, "So what do you think?" And he goes, "It's funny. I was so relaxed." Then he goes, "I don't think I should say anything else." And then he doesn't say anything else in the matter. But
fair enough.
you saw his reaction. Sorokin was pretty much like, "What are you doing?" And Binnington, I don't know if you guys caught this during Anders Lee's fight with Mikkola. Binnington speared Lee in the balls.
I did not see that.
Not speared. He more of had it in the area.
That's nice of him. That's very
nice.
Again,
Binnington does what he does to get under people's skin. He's like a Marchand in goal. The problem is he focused more on that than stopping the puck.
Yeah, he lost his own game trying to get other guys to lose their game. So have at it, Jordan. Go right ahead.
Yeah, he wasn't great. I mean, he makes those flashy saves. He won a cup. He's a guy, but he's a little hothead in there. And I think for goalies, it's all a mental game.
Most who used to be like that? Robin Lehner. Not so much in the diving end of things, but he used to get a little rough.
There's a difference between firing up your team or standing up for yourself, and then you're looking for trouble.
Right.
Binnington looks for trouble, and again, I don't know how his teammates view him.
In fact, Robin Lehner almost did the same thing Binnington did to Sorokin too. I think it was Kevin Poulin years ago.
It was.
When he was playing for Ottawa. So it's kind of funny to see that happening again, but obviously Leonard's taken a completely different
But the Islanders, after that first period, they found their game, and the Blues also didn't help themselves with the way they played out. I think they put a lot of their energy to starting strong. They had to. I mean, after your GM calls you out, you had a players-only meeting, you got to come out flying or you're in big trouble. And they just fell apart. And once the Islanders found their game, this is the biggest thing for the Islanders, why they've had a winning record, is once they get to their game, they're getting goals. They're getting production, and then they're holding the lead. Again, last year, there was a lot of games where they didn't get to their game. If they went down 1-0 last year, that's a wrap. That's how it felt like. But this year, you're back to the early Trotz years when they got their system where they get a lead, a 1-0 lead, they're winning that. They're not blowing that.
And not only that, you see that they're getting goals, but they're getting goals from guys that need to be scoring. Guys that we were questioning all season last year until it was too late in the second half.
Palmieri, Parisi.
Right, and I know every episode, every week, I keep making a joke or a comment about Palmieri and stuff like that. But he gets on the score sheet. Brock gets on the score sheet. He's hot now. Josh Bailey on the score sheet. Anders Lee, and then JGP gets the empty net goal.
And JGP's first goal of the year, and he's done. We'll get to that in a little bit, but he's done so much for this team. That, again, you say the little things. People say, well, Pedro's got to score. I think he has 5 assists on the year, and now he has a goal, but he does so much other things. Power play, penalty kill, face-offs, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But he does so much for this team where he's kind of I wouldn't say immovable asset, but he's one of those. I'm not going to say he's like Butch scoring at all. When you talk about players that are we have a good players in front of you. You always have those players that do things that don't. Again, people go on Josh Bailey all the time.
Mm-hmm.
He does so many little things during the game that you don't even realize. I mean, I asked Lambert, what does he do that that stands out, and he could go through it, but we're not hockey minds like they are. So many little things to help his line, to do things that we don't see, and that goes under the radar.
No, not only that, but they're amplified to like the nth degree in the playoffs. Like he's a guy,
and that's why Bailey's a playoff performer, because those things happen in the tight games.
Those are the type. I mean, look, they got to get. We've learned from this team over the last couple of years, even the ones they got in, they backed in, right?
Yeah.
That they have to prove that they can be a regular season team over 82 games. So far, so decent. To start this season.
The offensive output and the more aggressive style should help because it alleviates your defense when you have to make sure that you didn't allow a goal.
Right.
Or you might lose. The stress. I'm not going to say the defensemen felt stressed. They have a job to do every night. I spoke to Pulak about that. I said, does the uptick in offense from the forwards at least help you guys? And he goes, our game plan every game is to not allow them to score. It doesn't matter what our offensive does. That's how they view it, and that's really how they should.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we all know, okay, if you score a couple of goals early, it alleviates pressure off the defense having to be perfect, alleviates pressure off the goaltenders to have to be perfect. And that means less stress the whole year. And, stress leads to injuries, all those things. Whereas if you could keep your offense going, play the defense you're playing, get the goaltending, you go into the playoffs, you're probably much healthier. Less time in your own zone, less blocking shots, all that kind of stuff.
True.
Less pressure. That it might help you. Again, we have to see it be consistent. We're a little over 10% into the season. It's been good. But again, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
For sure. And just to wrap the road trip up, they go into Detroit yesterday, the dreaded afternoon game that nobody in Islander country likes.
In Detroit, especially, they don't do well.
So they go in, another slow start, and they actually never really get going. Obviously, they're held off the score sheet. Yes, they take a lot of penalties. They end up losing the game 3-0 to another young up and coming team.
They're on fire right now.
Yeah,
they just came back to beat the Rangers tonight. They were down 2 goals, and they won 3-2 in overtime. Halak broke
Look, I said this going into the season, that teams like Detroit, Ottawa, Jersey, Buffalo,
Philly.
Even Philly. I think that's eventually going to fall off the tracks. One of those like...
They're a team that you knew they were going to come out of the gates because no one had any anything going for them, thinking that they were going to be terrible. They're not. There's no shot they keep that up.
But just to go on these teams, like I thought they were going to be better, but they're even better than I thought. Now, granted, this could balance out over the course of the season, right? These teams are young. They're still learning the 82 game grind. We'll see how that works out when we get into the 20, 30, 40 game
Buffalo
mark.
always had a tendency to start off strong, then fall
every
off a cliff.
Season.
And I think their group is. I mean, shout out to Kyle Oposo as the captain now. I think he's been a culture change since he got there. And I know he had injury-riddled seasons. But I mean, Tage Thompson's a superstar. They gave him a big contract this offseason. Everyone flipped out. He's playing to that level of a contract right now. They have young guys. Darlene had a record to start the season with goals by a defenseman.
Right.
So things are clicking. Detroit again is a very young team as well.
Yep.
They have guys who will be. I mean, not that Detroit will make the playoffs.
Lucas Raymond looks great.
But it was like 25 years in a row they made the playoffs. I don't think we'll ever see that again because the cap and everything.
Sure.
But once these guys get to that elite level, because they're all the same age, this is going to be a tough team.
And Ville Husso's having a tremendous season so far. He gets the shutout.
Go back to Binnington. The reason why Husso is probably no longer on St. Louis is because they signed Binnington to a massive contract.
Right.
You can't keep that guy. And I know Husso, I think, was unrestricted. So it didn't work out. But Husso is great. And Delkovich is solid. He hasn't been as good as he's been since his rookie year, but you have a really young, good team that Yzerman's only going to make better. Yeah, Perron joins them too, so.
Yeah, it's the Eastern Conference is going to continue to get tougher, and we're already seeing kind of hints of that now with playing Jersey.
You're seeing the older teams, the Capitals, the Penguins, struggle and fall off, and that you're like a changing of the times, if you will. And I think the Islanders,
it's a circle.
And the Rangers are obviously still up there, and they'll be good for a while. But this is the Islanders' chance with Washington and Pittsburgh falling off. Because, again, we just spoke about how those other teams, those young teams, we'll see how if it balances out. But this is the time for the Islanders to just play consistent. They'll pass those teams falling. And eventually when those other young teams start to fall, if the Islanders can stay consistent, maybe we were thinking they'd make a wild card spot at the end, the third spot. Who knows? They could be in that second spot. We'll see.
It's a lot more open now than I thought it would be at the beginning of the season. Now, again, things tend to balance out, and we'll see how it all goes. Like, Boston's not going to continue to win 10 out of 12 games or whatever
Especially after, that controversial signing. They look distracted yesterday.
I'd love to get into that.
We don't get into that.
We don't have the time, but, I mean, what a joke that was. But look, I mean, the Islanders are in a decent spot now. They earn themselves into a play. They're probably in a wild cardish spot now.
They're in the top wild card spot, or they might be third at this point. They're a point. No, they're in the wild card spot, but they're a point behind the Rangers.
They were third after the win over St. Louis.
Yeah.
There's been some games since then. I think they're in the wild card area right now. But it's a good spot to be in. They're competitive. There's some teams that are struggling. There's some teams that are doing better than we thought. But they're in the mix, so they just got to continue to build off what they've done so far.
Exactly.
You take 2 out of 3 on a 3-game road trip. And we'll see it. They got 4 big games coming up, which we're going to talk about in a little while. But look, things are a lot better than they were a couple of weeks ago.
They were in last place a couple of weeks ago.
They're giving us a reason to watch, and that's all you can ask for. And they're scoring a lot more goals than we thought they were going to score. So I'd say they're off to a pretty decent start here. So real quick before we get into the segments, special teams has been a big factor for this team. It factored in huge yesterday against the Detroit Red Wings. What are you seeing out of the special teams? Obviously, they break the penalty killing record, 8-game streak, not giving up a power play goal. They go 28 for 28. They finally give up a few more. They're working at a 90.4% clip right now. Right now they've killed off 38 of 42. So real quick on the penalty kill, and we'll talk about the power play.
Yeah, so on this 3-game set, they're 9 for 12 on the PK, and you can't rely on the penalty kill to be perfect the whole year. It was never going to happen. I think, again, we talked about Sorokin bailing the Islanders out. Early in the year, you could talk about the unsung hero of this team was the penalty kill because they kept the Islanders in games that maybe they shouldn't have been in. Mm-hmm. And I think what you're seeing from the penalty kill is that you just have leaders on the penalty kill. You have Pajot and Parise, Cizikas. You have guys like that. Mayfield on defense. They're just stepping up. And again, the goaltender, it's cliche that they have to be your best penalty killer, and people don't like that. But at the same time, I mean, it's true. If you have a goalie that could bail you out, I mean, it's a 5-on-3 they give up yesterday, and unfortunately, we could talk about the officiating for a second. It wasn't good. You can't blame officiating for the reason you lost. The Islanders had chances on the power play. They didn't capitalize. They had chances 5-on-5. They didn't capitalize. Mm-hmm. But you look back and, you had a Romanov hook early, which David Perron did the veteran chicken wing, which again, credit to David Perron. That's what you got to do.
Romanov was not happy about that.
No, he was. He very
he
shows that
animated.
emotion.
Yeah.
But Pelech takes a hook after. Wallstrom steps in for Barzal, who gets hit up high. Legal hit. Mm-hmm. You don't hate what Wallstrom did. Second time he's actually fought against the Red Wings last year. Bavile got rocked, and Wallstrom jumped in. Do you want him coming across the ice? Again, you could have gotten in more trouble there. Mm-hmm. And again, if he thinks that it's a dirty hit, he's going to defend his players.
I'd say better to see far out of than not.
Oh,
even if it may not be the most calculated decision, I'd rather see Wahlstrom sticking up for his teammates than looking the other way.
And the only reason we're talking about it is because Pelech takes the phantom hooking penalty. It's a 5-on-3 because, I mean, more often than not, statistically, the Islanders are going to kill off that Wahlstrom penalty. That's how it's worked.
Right.
They take Pelech takes the hook, which I don't know what the ref was looking at, but that's a hard job, I guess. Yeah. And the Islanders get a little screwed.
Was there a rookie referee in that game?
There was a rookie referee. Yeah. We had a bunch of icing calls that weren't icings. Matt Martin, when you see Matt Martin
that's on the officials, though. That's on the linesman.
Not the linesman,
Yeah.
But when you see Matt Martin smash his stick against the glass because he's going to be...
he was not happy.
Cizikas, Barzal got on a breakaway, and he gets high-sticked by Sherratt. So there were definitely calls missed, but again, the Islanders did not lose because of those calls. It just didn't help them.
Look, 82-game season, you're going to lose games like that.
Yeah, of course.
Things aren't going to go your way, whether it's breaks with puck battles, whether it's breaks with the officiating. These things are going to happen.
And they didn't play well enough.
Yeah, at the end of the day, for sure. But I don't think you look at yesterday's game and say, "Oh man, back to bad habits. They're going to go in the tank now." No, you take this one in stride. They get their one afternoon game of the season out of the way. I think the earliest they play after this is 5 p.m.
Probably.
Later on in the season. I think that might be a game against Buffalo. Either way,
they used to play all the time on Saturday afternoons, and they just say, "You know what?
No more."
I think they looked at the Islanders' record in the afternoon and said, "You know what? We have to play this to our advantage."
Whatever the case is, it's out of the way. And like I said, they got those 4 games coming up, which we're just about to dive into. But the power play, real quick, we covered it with Chris, so we don't have to dive too much into this. 13.5%. They've only scored 5 out of 37 chances, so obviously
Lee has 3 of them. Nelson has
Dobson
1,
has
and Dobson has 1.
So there you have it. There's your 5 power play
goals. And 2
goals.
of them came in the same game.
Right. So, yeah, not off to a great start, but this was kind of expected.
Yeah.
Their power play hasn't been great. It got better at the end of last season, but
22% last year, but again, that was a bad year, and no one really cares about
And when you
power
pick
play.
things up in the second half of a losing year, you always take that with a grain of salt. So, look, I'm not saying that this power play doesn't have what it takes to be good, or at least in the top half. You're happy. Look, you're happy with like 14, 15, 16, 17. That's fine, because especially if you're goaltending like we talked about before and your PK is picking up the slack and you're scoring 5-on-5, which they're doing now, you can get away with that. Now, look, if the power play was completely in the tank and they were struggling elsewhere, then yeah, of course, it's a bigger sore spot. But the fact that the rest of the team, the other aspects of the team are able to kind of pick it up, you can kind of coast it. That's not to say don't try to get better, but it's not the reason why the Islanders have lost, 4 games now in the season, 5 games, whatever the case may be.
I personally believe, and I did an article for NY Hockey Now about the power play being the missing piece. I know Botta said, and Kurz also said that, but it's true. I looked at their high danger chins on the power play or expected goals, and there's a couple they should have more than they have. Now, does that make you an undefeated team? No. It is probably 1 or 2 more wins, and we'll see how that plays out at the end of the year. But again, most teams don't come through on the power play. What do you usually want? 1 for 4 is good on a given night. But it's the fact that, entries are tough. They allowed their first shorthanded goal, which is a backbreaker. So you're seeing a backbreaker yesterday, so that gave them a 2-0 lead. But you're seeing the power play just struggle to break into the zone. And when they're in the zone, a little too pass happy. You want to see them shoot. Brock Nelson this year, and I talked to him about it. He's playing on the right wall as a one-time option. He hasn't really done that before. And he also said that if the play calls for me to cut to the slot and shoot, he's going to do that too. And I think that's something that he needed to do more of, and he has, and we'll get to him in a little bit also. But this power play has the chances. They're just sometimes trying to get that too pretty of a goal. And again, also, like I said, they're not getting into the zone quick enough with speed. Other teams throwing the puck down with ease. Sometimes, they don't get momentum. That's the biggest thing too. It's one thing to not score on the power play.
Sure.
But it should always help you build momentum going forward, and it hasn't done that enough. And listen, I think they need an elite scorer to help with that, but they have the piece there to do enough.
Yeah.
Barzal is doing his thing, but again, Barzal is shooting a little. He shot a little more yesterday. He just missed the net about 4 or 5 times, which hurt him. But he's shooting, which is the positive.
Right.
Again, you want to, Pulak, you want to get those lanes, but when you get those chances, if it's a Pulak one-timer or Wahlstrom one-timer, you can't be whiffing. Because again, that could make or break a game like that. And the tides turned yesterday when the Islanders didn't score on their power play.
For sure. Well, Stefen, now we're going to do a rapid-fire What's on Tap. We're going to look at the games ahead. Yep. So hit the screen there, Edzo. We're going to talk What's on Tap real quick. The Islanders have 4 games coming up, starting tomorrow night at UBS Arena against the Calgary Flames. Then the following night, they head to MSG, a short little road trip over there to play the New York Rangers, who, as you've noted, have been struggling lately.
Yep.
So that'll be an interesting game. They're going to be looking for a little revenge after that first 3-0 shutout. Thursday, the Coyotes come into town. And then Saturday, the Columbus Blue Jackets, who are at the bottom of the league.
Dumpster fires.
With Johnny Gaudreau, who? Yeah, exactly. Jeez, that didn't work out so well. Look, a lot of season left, but my goodness, not looking good over there. So real quick, just talk about the 4 games ahead, and then we'll move on.
So the Calgary Flames have lost 4 straight.
Okay.
Now, as my good friend Brendan Azoff would say, is all streaks must come down at some point. But again, like I said, if the Islanders get to their game early, they're golden. The question is, can they get out fast? They have Kadri there. We know what Flames did this offseason.
Sure.
They're going to be better than losing 4 out of their 5 every time. That's how it's going to be. But if you allow them to get to their game first, any team to get to their game first, your chances of winning drop significantly. So I think the Islanders have to come out of the gates strong. Again, they didn't play well against Detroit. Lambert called them out for their speed.
Right.
I think we'll see a response there. And you have to get the Flames. Again, the Flames are struggling. They're going to be pressing. They're going to be doing things like that. Take advantage of that in transition. They're going to be pressing, be aggressive, get behind their defense, make their goaltending pay. For the Rangers, they've lost 2 straight. Tonight, they blew a 2-0 lead to Detroit and lost in overtime. This is not a good hockey team right now. You got to take advantage of teams that are struggling. What a shame, right? Arizona, they just beat the Caps 3-2. They're under 500, but not at the bottom of the totem pole right now. Arizona's a weird team, man. Mullet Arena, if you want to talk about that.
We don't have the time, but yes, we'll do it another time. Yeah.
And then Columbus is on a 5-game losing streak. They are the worst team in hockey. So again, you look at the schedule, and the reason the NHL is great is because any team can beat any team on any given night. We love that about the NHL.
Right.
But these are teams that the Islanders can beat and should beat. I mean, at least at the minimum 2-2, but there's no way they shouldn't get points in 3 of the 4 games.
Maybe a little 2-1-1.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. But again, if the Islanders could play their game against these teams that are all struggling,
right.
Good teams beat bad teams, great teams beat good teams, and you have to.
And 3 of them are at home.
3 of them are at home, and again, one of them is at MSG, and Varlamov's probably going to play. We'll find out tomorrow. He has absolutely dominated at MSG.
Yeah.
Can the offense score? Will Shesterkin be in? I don't know. We'll see what happens. But yeah, looking ahead, not that it's an easy schedule. All no games are easy, but this is an opportunity for the Islanders to pad the points. And like Botta said, you got to put the points in the bank early.
Right.
This is the time to do it. When you're playing teams that are struggling, you cannot let them get to their game because that's how they snap out of that.
No question about it. So, Edzo, cue up Hero of the Week. Let's run through our heroes. Ladies and gentlemen, when you hear this song, that means it's time for the Hero of the Week, brought to you by the Blue Line Deli and Bagels. Half-price hero this week is the Seany with grilled roast beef, sautéed onion, mushrooms, fresh mozzarella on a toasted garlic hero. Stop on in to Blue Line Deli and Bagels, Huntington. Mention Hockey Night New York and get half off the Seany. So, with that out of the way, Stefen Rosner, who is your hero of the week?
Yeah, so we're going to kick it off with Brock Nelson. He had 2 goals this week. Heading into the Detroit Red Wings game, he had 5 goals in his last 4 games. This is a guy that scored 37 last year. They need him to score. He was getting points. I think he had 8 assists. But again, you're paying him to score goals. He has to be a goal scorer for this team. So he scores 2 goals this week. Game winner for Chicago on a breakaway glove side. That showed confidence. He wasn't confident early in the year. If you're going to shoot rather than deke, that means you're confident in your shot.
Right.
That's big. Lambert said that after the Carolina game where he scored 2 goals, he's moving his feet. We're seeing more of Nelson being in the play. I feel like he maybe was a little bit, he wasn't completely involved. He wasn't back-checking, doing the things that make Brock Nelson good. He scores 2 goals. He had the go-ahead goal versus St. Louis. They scored 2, which eliminated that as being the game winner. But again, he scored again. He has 5 goals in 4 games. He had a 4-game goal streak. Again, this is a guy that's streaky.
Yeah.
But we saw last year, that streak could last a whole season.
You just waited till Brovember to get going.
Of course. 37 goals in only 72 games. He probably would have had over 40 if he was healthy the whole year. So again, he had 10 shots on goal. 6 of them were high danger chances. 6 were scoring chances. And if you looked at the first 7 games of the year, he had no goals. I think he had 1 high danger chance on goal.
Wow.
So it goes to show that he's more involved now. He's confident. He's getting to those areas. He's cutting to the slot more. He's skating. You're seeing that Brock Nelson you saw last year. Now, again, goal streak snaps against Detroit. No one scored, obviously. But this is a guy that when he gets hot, he goes on a rampage. And we'll see this year if he can do it for a full 82.
They're going to need him. They're going to need him to do it. And you make a very good case for Brock for Hero of the Week. So good job by you, Stefen.
Appreciate it.
And now we move on to me. And I'm staying consistent. This might be the 3rd week in a row now that I've gone with this gentleman. And look, he's a big reason why this team is winning hockey games. He's keeping them in it. Stefen noted on it before, and we've been talking about it on the show. And look, he's a guy that this team is going to be relying on all season long. And look, it's a great commodity to have, especially when you're still looking to get your offense going, which the Islanders have. But once again, Ilya Sorokin, my hero of the week, .931 save percentage through the week, 1.87 goals against average. Those are Vezina caliber numbers here. Hopefully he keeps that up. He stopped 13 of 15 high danger chances, a total of 54 saves on 58 shots. The one little blemish came in real quick to spell Varlamov while he was in concussion protocol. Ends up giving up the goal in the breakaway. We give him a little bit of a break on that, and certainly not the reason why they lost. Yeah, of course. So there you have it, folks. Brock Nelson, I almost said Semyon Varlamov. Ilya Sorokin, your heroes of the week. Remember, stop on in to the Blue Line Deli and Bagels Huntington location, mention Hockey Night New York, and get half off the Selly. And
I have an honorary hero of the week. Just want to talk about Pajot. I don't think he gets enough credit for what he does. So he got the empty net goal, which took the monkey off his back a little bit. 1 goal, 5 assists on the year.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a 56.8 face-up percentage. But I wanted to dive in because I spoke to Palmieri and Parise about their line, the 3P line, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
And
Triple P.
Every time I said what's clicking, they all pointed to Pajot and what he does. Defensive zone face-up percentage 53.85%. PK, 54.35% when he takes the face-offs. And on the power play, 52.94%.
Those are big numbers.
The biggest thing is defensive zone face-offs.
Yeah.
You win those, you transition. It's critical.
Oh, yeah.
And again, on the PK,
it usually lops off like 15, 20 seconds of the power play if you get it deep.
So this guy in all areas of the game, in the offensive zone, defensive zone, power play, penalty kill, he's winning face-offs. And that changes everything because if you have a guy not winning face-offs on the PK, that's extra offensive zone time for those power plays. That's a reason why the penalty kill has been so successful because they win it back, clear it down the ice. So I think, Pajot deserves an honorary mention there.
Stefen, I like it. Good stuff. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, questions brewing.
Islanders fans, Sunday night is Hockey Night in New York. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, tune in to Hockey Night in New York. Catch us live from Floored Media in Rockville Center, Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, as we cover all things Islanders at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. All episodes are also available on YouTube and all your favorite podcast providers. And for all you social butterflies, you can follow at Hockey Night NY on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for all the latest updates. Hockey Night in New York, the best night of the week for any Islanders fan.
It's time for Questions Brewing, brought to you by Lost Farmer Brewing Company.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for Questions Brewing, brought to you by Lost Farmer Brewing Company. So, Edzo.
How we doing?
Yeah, how we doing, bud? How you been?
It's
been a little while. Yeah, man.
We are back.
All right. So, buddy, hit us, man. What kind of questions you got for us tonight?
Well, there's a little discussion
is that right?
About team speed before even the stream really got going here.
Okay.
So Andre was saying how the Islanders have a big problem against speedy teams. Case in point, Devils in Detroit.
Sure.
To which, Mike, answer question regarding speed. Do they actually have and or use a skating coach to actively improve their skating?
So during training camp and development camp, they have a speed coach come in. I forgot her name, but she does a great job. She's worked with Lambert before. They definitely work on it. They have a skills coach as well that works on in transition, making moves. So, and also this team has speed, but they don't have, they have one Barzal. They have one Bavillier.
Sure.
You look at Detroit, again, being young does help. A lot of the guys, not the Islanders, are significantly old when people look at them. They have a lot of young guys, but for the most part, their players are older. 30s. So if they were fast in their heyday, maybe they're not as fast now, but you look at teams like, these guys are fresh into the NHL, flying around.
Yeah.
The biggest thing with that is we talked to the players and we said, how do you limit speed? Biggest thing they said is forechecking. And when you think about it, it's like, all right, that's a little counterproductive. You're going to forecheck hard, waste your energy. But the thing is if you could pin them in their own zone, they can't transition with speed. When they break out of the zone, they're going to have to dump in chains, and maybe they'll win the puck battle because of their speed. But the more you forecheck, you see the fourth line do this, the third line do this. Even Wallstrom's doing this a lot now. It limits the team's abilities to break out. And that's the biggest thing. Speed in transition, not just regular speed.
Right. Not literally how many miles per hour can this guy skate down the ice. It's this more aggressive style now that the Islanders are playing that are literally slowing other teams down. And I think, look, hats off to Lane Lambert. Again, it's still early. We'll see how the rest of the season pans out. But so far, his system's looking pretty damn good because we saw how much speed was killing them last season. And now it seems like they're able to counter that a little bit. Obviously, some blips, like mentioned, New Jersey and Detroit. But you talk about the other games that they've played, that they've won, that they've looked good, they've kept pace. And even if you have a couple of guys on the wrong side of 30, if you're playing a system that can limit the other team's speed, then it kind of just levels the playing field. And it doesn't necessarily matter if Josh Bailey or Brock Nelson can't hit 26 miles an hour or whatever the average speed is for an NHL hockey player. So it's a great point by you, and I think that's huge that they've been able to show that they can hang with these teams so far.
And what I will add there, Detroit, the Devils is the fact that the Islanders could limit speed when they play their system, their game. If you allow the other teams to get to their game first, Detroit, Jersey, you're not forechecking because you're already in your own zone.
Right.
So that's why it's so important for them to get off to strong starts, especially against those fast teams, because once those teams are playing their speedy game, the Islanders can't do what they need to do to limit that. That's pretty much it.
There you go. So, Edzo, next question.
Next up is Coach Lambert.
Let's go.
I mean, it's Lambert, but Lambert,
I
something
mean,
about it.
No,
something
no.
about saying Lambert.
It's a fun name.
Yeah. After 12 games, what do we think of Lou's big offseason signing? Romanov has been busting his butt, and I'm a fan.
I'm going to start off by saying it's still a work in progress, but I like what I'm seeing. And I think he's getting better by the game. I think there's still a little raw element to his game. And I think that there's still a feeling out period with his partner, Noah Dobson. But all in all, I think that he's going to live up to the billing. I love his very, highly touted physical game that we were all hearing about when he came over, and I think he's lived up to that billing so far. So I'm excited about that. I think they can end up being a very good pairing as they continue to grow together. Now, I know it's kind of a laugher, as saying, the big signing and whatnot. It's the only move that they made, but I think it's paying dividends already. The fact that he's so young, because he has more speed and he's able to move the puck a little better from the back end outwards, and I think he's going to improve in that regard. So from my point of view, it's a good move. Is it like earth-shattering, team-changing team? Maybe not, but I think this is a guy that's going to, definitely help this team, probably, hopefully get back into the playoffs, Stefen.
Yeah, he might look 30. He's 22.
Right.
So this kid's been in the league for, I think, 3 years. And also, he's coming from a Montreal Canadiens team where they were horrendous last year. There was no system. It was like the old Islanders under Doug Wade. Just go have fun.
And the big word was when San Luis took over, he started looking a lot better.
So San Luis, when he first started, especially over in Russia, I forgot who I was talking to. They were developing defensive zone defensemen. That was it. No transition. Just you focus on your play in your own zone.
Yeah.
He goes to Montreal, you're doing a little more. They want you to be. Again, this was a bad team in general last year. St. Louis comes, adds structure. Romanov got more minutes, on the penalty kill. He got more of a bigger role, which I think helps him with the Islanders. But again, It's a brand new system where he has to learn again. The biggest thing is he's an aggressive kid. The problem is Dobson's so used to. Since Dobson broke into the league, he started with Boychuk, then Andy Green,
who was a hitter in his own right, Johnny Boychuk. So it's nice to have that element again.
But they're all and Chara. Defensive defenseman.
Right.
Dobson can jump in on the play knowing they're back. Well, the problem is Romanov's not back. And that's what you're seeing early. He's stepping at the blue line, which is great. You want aggressiveness.
Sure.
But he was getting beat. And when he was getting beat, Dobson was in the neutral zone. And he went into odd man rushes against, and we saw goals happen. We saw those pairings not work. The biggest thing for Romanov is just reading Dobson. And again, they have to work on chemistry. We saw last year. How long did it take Chara and Dobson? They eventually did click.
Yep.
But it took them a while.
Right.
And I think it's much more about Romanov learning Dobson. But again, Dobson has to learn, okay, if I see Romanov step, I can't. And Dobson has the speed to get back that maybe other defensemen wouldn't have in that situation. But you talk about the physicality. I didn't realize how much of a shot blocker he was either. He eats
he's
pucks.
stepping in front of everything.
He eats pucks.
Yeah.
And again, we'll see how that holds up over a season. You don't want someone getting hurt. But he blocks everything he can. He stands up for his goal. He stands up for everybody. He's a physical presence in front. Again, he just has to focus on his puck decisions because he's throwing pucks maybe to the slot or trying to ring the puck around the board. It's not often where he does that and it gets picked off at the point or it's to no one.
Right.
Again, just understanding this. That's systematic where he thinks that there's a forward on the boards, on the end walls. No one's there.
Right.
The more he plays, the better he will be. But this pairing could be a pairing for 10 plus years and eventually be, a top pairing for this team. Pelech and Pulak obviously are here. But you said that the signing, nothing big. If he plays the way that they believe he can play in the system, your top 4 defensive pairing, or 2 defensive pairings, makes you an elite defensive team, which it weren't last year.
Yeah, it wasn't the sexy signing that everybody was looking for. But
this team is not sexy with anything they do, so.
It's a fair point. Matt Barzell's a little sexy, but outside of that, I get your point. All right, Eddie, what do you got?
We got a couple from Andre 13 here.
Andre 3000?
It might as well be. It really might as well be. Hey, not really in a question phrasing, but Ishikov reminds me of Gaudreau.
Oh, I said that earlier.
Oh, yeah. You did. Stefan agrees.
That's true. Yes.
Okay, let's go to the next one.
Maybe not its best. Yeah. Well, this is the other one. That's also not phrased as a question, but I will read it because it has questions brewing beforehand.
Okay, all right.
Bolduc is better than Salo or Aho. Not even close. Wow. Why isn't he even under consideration for call-up?
Well, first off, until he plays an NHL game, it's very hard to say that he's better than both.
It's obviously a very personal opinion.
Yeah, he's well. Okay, one thing is
it turned into a question with the why isn't he even under consideration?
Yeah, he used the why. That's a good word.
Yeah.
But Bolduc again, last year he's coming off a major injury. The last thing you want to do is rush him back. He got hurt also at development camp, or he was hurt going into development camp. He didn't play much. You didn't see him at all during preseason. I think there is no rush for Bolduc. But what I will say is, the farther Salo falls on the totem pole, I think, again, if he stays in Bridgeport, let's say, and he's not the best defenseman down there, and Bolduc is, Bolduc will get a shot. But again, that's your team winning. You want consistency in the lineup. Bolduc comes in, he's going to have rookie mistakes. And again, this is a team that you're not rushing when you're playing bad.
Desperate for a guy like him, and let him over-ripen a little bit.
Yeah.
If he's playing great down there, and if he turns out to be better than the other guys, great. But is he
I think
a guy
he has
they
the
need
potential
right
to be,
now?
but no. If the team was bad and they were, we have to do something to stop the losing, and Bolduc's playing well, you call him up. But right now, the same thing. The reason Salo isn't playing is because the Islanders are winning. If they were losing and Aho was bad and making mistakes, at that point, why not just get Salo experience? Why not just get Bolduc? Why not just call up Ratu and do 4?
Sure.
They don't have to do that. There's no rush for Bolduc again. He was hurt all of last year. Let him play consistent minutes. He's playing quite well. The last thing you want to do is rush a Josh Bailey's the biggest example. He gets called up too early, and then he gets a bad rep for not being good.
For his entire career.
Where you look back at, okay, maybe he didn't take advantage, but he wasn't ready.
Right.
And when you rush a prospect, it has lingering effects.
It has, yes,
so,
absolutely.
especially for a team that's defensive-oriented, where your defense, again, Dobson and Romanov, 22-year-old pair, be around for a while. Salo, if he's still here, be around for a while.
Right.
There's no point in hindering someone's development by rushing them when a team's winning.
Right. Eddie, let's do like one or two more, man. What do you got?
Well, we haven't got any new ones. That seems to be it. However,
okay, you got something for us, buddy?
There's something in here.
Okay, what you got?
Coach Lambert, yet again.
Okay.
New Christian is so optimistic. I love it.
Yeah. Stefan's got a little more of a positive attitude, I think, than Christian Arnold did. So I don't know. Maybe we'll keep him around for a couple more. We'll see. But who's Christian Arnold again?
Yeah, who?
CA, that guy.
CA, yes.
His Twitter has an 01 because there's too many of them, right?
Wow. You have to differentiate. Yeah, no. Hey, look, Christian's doing a great job over at AM New York. He's literally covering every New York team under the sun.
Why be negative when you could be optimistic? And again,
ask Christian Arnold that because he's just a miserable
when
bastard.
When you text me, I get depressed. I'm kidding. He doesn't text me.
Oh, man. No, it's actually the mood's been much better here since he hasn't been around. No, Christian, we love you. Hopefully you'll be back soon. We know you're busy covering the Jets, the Yankees, the Giants, the Nets. I mean, literally everybody
Bills.
But the Island. I don't know if he's covering the Bills. But
no, he's not
he might as well. He might as well. But, we'll get him back in here soon. One day eventually.
Not today, but one day.
He's still on the phone lines. Don't worry. We'll get him back in. But, folks, that'll do it for Questions Brewing. Thanks a lot for getting your questions in, hanging out with us live here. So, Ed, you can cue the outro music. We're going to get out of here, man. We got to get out of here. There it is. All right, folks, I want to thank you all big time for tuning in to Hockey Night in New York at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY Live. And, of course, on your favorite podcast providers. Huge thanks to Chris Botta, co-host of Hockey Night in New York, flipping over to the other side, getting on the phone, giving us some good stuff there. And, of course, a big thanks to this clown over here, Stefen Rosner, for jumping in. Great stuff tonight, buddy. Really appreciate you helping us out.
My pleasure.
Awesome stuff. And, of course, a thanks to you guys and our absolute wonderful sponsors, starting with Blue Line Deli and Bagels, with their flagship location at 719 West Jericho Turnpike. Remember, you can stop in, mention Hockey Night in New York, and get half off the celly all week long. Take Donnie's money away. Get those half-price heroes all week. Do it up. Huge thanks to Lost Farmer Brewing Company, located at 63A 2nd Street in Mineola. Again, doing great stuff over there. The delicious Stable Shaker over here. And, of course, the Top Gun IPA. All great stuff. Check them out at lostfarmerbrewing.com. Stefen, where can we find you on the socials?
Yep, at Stefen_Rosner, STEFEN_ROSNER, and my work, NYIHockeyNow.com.
Keep up the great work over there. You can follow myself at Seany Hockey. You can follow Christian Arnold if you want at C_Arnold01. You can follow Chris Botta at Chris Botta NHL. You can follow Hockey Night New York at Hockey Night NY on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. We're all over the damn place. Check us out. For Stefen Rosner, my name is Sean Cuthbert. We've been Hockey Night in New York. And hey, Edzo, thanks to you back there, buddy.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks a lot. And Jay, we know you've been hanging out too, man. Thanks a lot. You've been doing a great job. There he is. All right, folks. Thanks a lot for tuning in. We will see y'all next time.